The transport ship descended through the artificial atmosphere of Harmony Point, a massive space station that floated in neutral territory between three major star systems. Inside the passenger bay, Lieutenant Jake Morrison pressed his face against the window, watching as the docking bay grew larger. He had seen pictures of the station before, but nothing prepared him for the actual size of it. The thing was bigger than Manhattan. "First time off Earth?" asked the pilot through the intercom. "First time off the ground," Jake replied, grinning despite his nerves. The Galactic Military Academy occupied an entire section of Harmony Point. It was where the galaxy's best and brightest came to learn the art of warfare, diplomacy, and leadership. For 200 years, species from across known space had sent their finest warriors here, and now for the first time a human was joining their ranks. Jake grabbed his bag as the ship settled into the dock. The doors opened with a hiss and he stepped out into a corridor filled with beings that looked like they had walked out of a science fiction movie. A tall, crystalline creature glided past, its body refracting light into rainbow patterns. A group of what looked like upright wolves chatted in barking sounds that his translator earpiece converted to standard English. Something with too many legs and eyes skittered along the ceiling. He tried not to stare. They were probably trying not to stare at him too. The orientation hall was enormous. Hundreds of cadets from dozens of species filled the space, all wearing the same gray uniforms. Jake found a seat near the back and sat down, very aware that every eye in the room had tracked his movement. The instructor at the front was a luminar, one of those crystalline beings. Its voice echoed through the hall like wind chimes. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy. You are the finest your worlds have to offer. Here you will be tested. Many of you will fail. Those who succeed will lead your people into a new era of cooperation and peace." The speech went on for another hour. Jake's translator struggled with some of the concepts, but he got the basic idea. Work hard, don't quit, become a leader. Pretty standard military stuff. After the speech, cadets were divided into groups for the first round of testing. Physical assessments came first. Jake followed the crowd to a massive gymnasium where various stations had been set up. The first test measured reaction time. Cadets stood in a circle while drones flew at them from random directions. The goal was to touch each drone before it passed. Jake watched a few others go first. They were fast, no doubt about it. When his turn came, he stepped into the circle and relaxed his shoulders the way his high school baseball coach had taught him. The drones came fast. Jake's hand shot out, tagging each one. When the test ended, the instructor looked at the display and then at Jake. It said something in a language the translator couldn't handle, but the tone was clear. Surprise. The second test was an obstacle course. Jake jogged up to the starting line and studied it. Walls to climb, bars to swing across, a balance beam, and a rope climb at the end. It looked like a bigger version of the playground equipment at his elementary school. "Begin," the instructor said. Jake ran. His body moved on autopilot, muscle memory from years of playing sports and climbing trees taking over. He hit the first wall and pulled himself up, swung across the bars, balanced across the beam without slowing. At the rope climb, he used the technique he had learned in gym class and made it to the top in seconds. When he dropped back to the ground, breathing hard but not exhausted, he noticed the other cadet staring at him again. One of them, an insect-like being with multiple arms and large compound eyes, approached him. "That was remarkable," the creature said through Jake's translator. "Your species must have excellent training facilities." "Thanks," Jake said, not sure what else to say. The test continued through the day. Endurance running, where Jake finished in the top 10%. Problem solving under pressure, where he had to disable a simulated bomb while alarms blared. Hand-to-hand combat simulation, where he grappled with a hologram opponent. Each test put him near the top of the rankings. By the evening, Jake was tired but satisfied. He made his way to the mess hall, grabbed something that looked vaguely like food, and found an empty table. He had barely taken his first bite when the insect cadet from earlier appeared beside him. "May I join you?" it asked. "Sure," Jake said, gesturing to the seat across from him. The creature settled into the chair, folding its multiple limbs in a way that seemed uncomfortable, but probably wasn't. "I am Cadet Zix Thar of the Verknith Collective. You may call me Zix, Jake Morrison. Nice to meet you. You performed exceptionally well today," Zix said, its translator giving the words a formal tone. "I have been reviewing the scores. You rank in the 95th percentile or higher in almost every category." Jake shrugged. I did okay. Zix's antennae twitched in what might have been confusion. You outperformed cadets who have trained for this their entire lives. Surely your people must have an intensive preparation program for those selected to attend the academy. Not really, Jake said around a mouthful of something purple. I just went through basic training like everyone else in the military. 6 months of drills and exercises. Now Zix looked genuinely puzzled. 6 months? But the Verknith spend 10 cycles preparing warriors for combat roles. The Srath spend 15. How can humans achieve such results in only 6 of your months? I mean, I wasn't exactly starting from zero, Jake said. I played sports in school, went camping with my family, that kind of thing. Sports? Camping? Zix repeated the words like they were foreign concepts, which Jake supposed they were. Before he could explain, 3 more cadets approached the table. One was a reptilian creature with scales that shifted colors. Another looked almost human, but with blue skin and gills on its neck. The third was covered in fur and had a snout like a bear. Is it true? The reptilian one asked without preamble. Did you really complete the obstacle course in 47 seconds? I guess, Jake said. I wasn't really timing myself. That is 10 seconds faster than the academy record, the blue-skinned one said. Her voice had a melodic quality even through the translator. I am Miralyn of the Delphine Confederacy. This is Kesavan of the Srath Empire and Durok of the Ursidai clans. Jake nodded at each of them. Jake Morrison, Earth. We have heard of your world, Kesavan said, his scales rippling orange. Your species only achieved faster than light travel 30 cycles ago. You are very new to the galactic community. Yeah, we're the new kids on the block, Jake agreed. Which makes your performance today all the more remarkable, Miralyn said. She sat down without asking, and the others followed. Species that have been spacefaring for thousands of cycles sent their best cadets here. Yet you, from a world barely into its space age, match or exceed them. Jake was starting to feel uncomfortable with all the attention. Look, I just did my best. Same as everyone else. But how were you trained? Zix insisted. There must be some program, some method. Your species has only known about the wider galaxy for 30 cycles. You could not have been preparing for this academy specifically, yet you move like a warrior born. I'm not a warrior born, Jake said, laughing. I'm just a guy from Ohio who joined the military after high school. High school? Durok's ears perked up. What is this? It's a school for teenagers. You know, kids aged like 14 to 18. The aliens exchanged glances. You were in education until 18 cycles of age? Kesavan asked. Yeah, that's pretty standard where I'm from. And before 18? Miralyn pressed. What did you do? Before, I was a kid. Went to school, hung out with friends, played video games, played sports. Normal kid stuff. More confused looks. Zix's antennae were twitching rapidly now. I do not understand. The translator is having difficulty with some of these concepts. Video games. Normal kid stuff? What do these terms mean? Jake realized he had stumbled into territory that was harder to explain than he thought. How do you describe childhood to aliens who might have completely different life stages? Okay, so humans are born really helpless, right? We can't walk or talk or do anything. We spend years just growing and learning. That whole time we're kids, children, and we do stuff to learn and grow. All species have a youth stage, Durok said, but it is brief. We mature quickly and then begin our life's training. How long is brief? Jake asked. For my people, 2 cycles, Durok said. We are protected by our parents, taught the basics of knowledge and survival. Then we join society as adults. The others nodded agreement with similar time frames. Jake did some quick math in his head. Wait, so you guys are considered adults at 2 or 3 years old? In your years, yes, Zix confirmed. Is this not normal? No, Jake said. Humans aren't adults until 18 at least. Some people would say not until 25. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, Miralyn spoke. 25 cycles? You remain children for 25 cycles? Well, yeah. I mean, we mature along the way, but legally and developmentally it takes a while. Kesavan's scales had gone pale. What do you do for all that time? Jake opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. How could he possibly explain 18 years of childhood in a way that made sense? We play, he said finally. We go to school. We figure out who we are. Jake stared at the group of alien cadets sitting around him in the mess hall. They all looked at him with expressions he couldn't quite read, but the intensity was clear enough. They wanted answers, and apparently he was the only human around to give them. Show you what exactly? Jake asked carefully. Zix leaned forward, its multiple arms folding in a gesture that might have been eagerness. Show us how humans train. Your childhood, as you call it. We need to understand how your species produces warriors of your caliber without formal military conditioning. I'm not really a warrior, Jake protested. I'm just a regular guy. You completed today's tests at levels we have been training our entire lives to achieve, Kesavan said, his scales shifting to a deep purple that Jake's translator helpfully informed him meant serious concern. If you are a regular human, then your entire species must be remarkable. Jake scratched the back of his neck, thinking, Look, I don't know what you want me to say. I grew up in a small town, went to school, played baseball and football, hung out with my friends. That's it. That's my training. Baseball? Football? Miralyn asked. These are military terms? No, they're sports, games. Games, Duroc repeated slowly. You trained for warfare through games? They're not warfare, Jake said, getting frustrated. They're just, sports. You throw a ball, you run, you try to score points. It's fun. The silence that followed told Jake that his explanation had not helped. Finally, Zix spoke again. Perhaps the translation is insufficient. Let me ask directly. What specific conditioning did you undergo before joining your military? Jake thought about it. Well, I did gym class in school. That's where you exercise and play sports. And I rode my bike everywhere, climbed trees when I was younger, went swimming in the summer, played video games with my friends, helped my dad with yard work, normal stuff. I do not understand any of those activities, Zix admitted. Okay, look, Jake said, pulling out his personal tablet. Maybe it's easier if I just show you. Give me a day or two to put something together, okay? I'll make a presentation or something. The aliens looked at each other, having some kind of silent conversation. Then they all turned back to him and nodded in agreement. We would be grateful, Miralyn said. Many cadets are curious about the human who has achieved such remarkable scores. I believe others would wish to attend your presentation as well. Great, Jake muttered. No pressure. Over the next 2 days, Jake spent every free moment working on his presentation. He accessed Earth's databases through the Academy's network, pulling videos, images, and explanations. The more he worked on it, the more he realized how strange human childhood would look to species who matured in just a couple of years. He sent a message home asking his parents to send him videos from his childhood. His mom replied within hours, thrilled that he was sharing human culture with aliens. She sent him everything: birthday parties, baseball games, him falling off his bike, his little sister's soccer matches, family camping trips, hours and hours of footage. Jake watched the videos and tried to see them through alien eyes. What would they think of a 7-year-old climbing a tree 20 feet off the ground? Or a bunch of 10-year-olds crashing into each other playing football? Or teenagers jumping off cliffs into water? He organized everything into categories: physical development, social learning, risk-taking behavior, competitive play, and problem-solving. By the time he finished, he had a 2-hour presentation. Word had spread through the academy. When Jake arrived at the auditorium on the scheduled day, he found it packed. Not just cadets, but instructors too. Apparently, the human who had broken several academy records on his first day was worth their time. Jake swallowed hard and walked to the front. A holographic display flickered to life behind him. Hi everyone, he started. So, I'm Jake Morrison, and I'm here to talk about human childhood. Fair warning. Some of this might seem weird or even disturbing to you, but I promise it's all completely normal for my species. He brought up the first slide, which showed a human growth chart. Okay, so first thing you need to know. Humans take forever to grow up. We're born completely helpless. Can't walk, can't talk, can barely see. A human baby will die without constant care. Several aliens shifted uncomfortably. Jake pressed on. We start walking around age 1. That's 1 Earth year. But here's the thing, we're really bad at it at first. Watch this. He played a video of his sister Sophie learning to walk. She took 2 steps, fell on her butt, got up, took 3 more steps, fell again. Over and over. The video was 2 minutes of her falling and getting back up. She probably fell down 100 times a day for weeks, Jake said. And every time she got back up and tried again. That's human babies. They fail constantly and they keep trying. He clicked to the next video. This is what we call a playground. It's specifically designed for children to play on. The video showed a park with swings, slides, climbing structures, and monkey bars. Kids ran around screaming, climbing, jumping, falling. "How old are these children?" Kesavan asked from the audience. "Range from about 4 to 12 years old," Jake said. "Watch this kid on the monkey bars." A boy swung from bar to bar, hands slipping on the third one. He fell 6 feet to the ground, landing in the sand. He lay there for a moment, then got up, brushed himself off, and climbed back up to try again. "Did he injure himself?" Someone called out. "Probably scraped his hands a little," Jake said. "But that's part of learning. You fall, you get hurt a bit, you figure out how not to fall next time." He showed more videos. Kids playing tag, learning to run and dodge. Kids climbing trees, calculating which branches would hold their weight. Kids on bicycles crashing and getting back up. "This is permitted?" An instructor in the front row asked. It was Instructor Caldur, a luminar with a reputation for being one of the toughest teachers at the academy. "Parents allow their offspring to engage in activities with such high injury potential?" "Encouraged, actually," Jake said. "My mom used to tell me, go outside and play and then lock the door until dinner time. We were expected to entertain ourselves and deal with whatever happened." The auditorium buzzed with shocked conversation. Jake waited for it to die down. "Okay, so that's physical stuff. But there's also mental training. We do this through something called education, but also through play. Let me show you video games." He pulled up footage of kids playing various games. Racing games where they had to make split-second decisions. Strategy games where they commanded armies. Puzzle games that required creative problem-solving. First-person shooters where they practiced aim and tactical thinking. "These are combat simulations?" Marilyn asked. "Entertainment," Jake corrected. "Kids play these for fun. This one is really popular with 10-year-olds. The game on screen showed zombies attacking. A player character fought them off with various weapons, making rapid decisions about resources and tactics. 10 cycles old? Durok sounded horrified. "Children engage with violent simulations at 10 cycles? I mean, they know it's not real," Jake said. "It's just a game. But yeah, it teaches you to think fast, manage resources, plan ahead, all useful skills." He showed them sports next. Football games where players crashed into each other at full speed. Basketball where they fought for position and learned to read opponents. Baseball where they practiced hand-eye coordination and strategic thinking. "This is soccer," Jake said, showing a video of his sister's team. "Sophie is number 7. Watch how she reads the field, anticipates where the ball will go, positions herself. She's 9 years old in this video, and she's making tactical decisions in real time while running at full speed." More shocked murmuring from the audience. Jake pulled up another category: stories and media. Humans also prepare children through narratives. We tell them stories about heroes, dangers, and adventures. This trains them to think about problems and solutions. He showed clips from popular children's movies. Kids fighting monsters, teenagers saving the world, young heroes outsmarting villains. In this one, a 10-year-old girl gets trapped in a spirit world and has to use her wits to survive and save her parents. Jake explained. "We show this to children to teach them about courage, problem-solving, and perseverance." "You expose children to scenarios of danger and loss?" Kesvan asked. "This seems cruel." "It prepares them for reality," Jake said. "Life isn't safe. Bad things happen. Better to learn how to deal with it through stories first, right?" He showed them more. Teenagers doing parkour, running across rooftops and jumping between buildings. Kids at summer camp learning to start fires, build shelters, and navigate with compasses. School science classes where children handled potentially dangerous chemicals under minimal supervision. "This is a normal human high school chemistry class," Jake said. "These students are 16 years old. They're working with acids, bases, and flammable materials. The teacher supervises but doesn't do the work for them. They're expected to follow safety protocols and handle the materials themselves." The auditorium had gone completely silent. Jake looked out at the sea of alien faces, all staring at him with expressions ranging from shock to horror to fascination. Instructor Caldur stood up. "Let me ensure I understand correctly, Lieutenant Morrison. Human children, from the time they can walk, are exposed to activities involving risk of injury, failure." Jake clicked through more slides showing the assembled aliens aspects of human childhood they could barely comprehend. With each new video, the murmuring in the auditorium grew louder. "This is what we call Little League Baseball," Jake said, pulling up footage of 8-year-olds playing. The ball is thrown at speeds up to 60 miles per hour. The batter has less than half a second to decide whether to swing. If they miss, they try again. If they get hit by the ball, it hurts, but they're expected to shake it off and keep playing. On screen, a small boy got hit in the shoulder by a pitch. He grimaced, rubbed the spot, then took his base and continued playing. The child was injured, a voice called out. Why did the adult supervisors not remove him from the activity? Because he's fine, Jake said. It'll bruise, but he's okay. Part of the game. If kids got pulled out every time they got a little hurt, we'd never finish a game. He switched to another video. This is skateboarding. You stand on a board with wheels and do tricks. It requires balance, spatial awareness, and a lot of courage because you fall. A lot. The video showed teenagers attempting various tricks, falling hard onto concrete, getting up, and trying again. One kid fell at least 15 times trying to land a particular trick. I tried skateboarding when I was 12, Jake said. Broke my wrist the first week. Got a cast, waited 6 weeks for it to heal, then got back on the board. Instructor Calder stood again. You fractured a bone and then voluntarily returned to the activity that caused the fracture. Well, yeah, Jake said. I wanted to learn. Falling is part of learning. This philosophy extends to all human child rearing? Calder asked. Pretty much. We have a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. The translator took a moment to process that, and then the auditorium erupted in conversation. Jake waited for it to settle down. Let me show you some stories we tell kids, he said, pulling up a new section. These shape how we think about challenges and danger. He showed them fairy tales first. Hansel and Gretel, where children were abandoned in the woods and had to outwit a witch. Little Red Riding Hood, where a girl had to be clever to escape a predator. The Three Little Pigs, where preparation and smart thinking meant the difference between life and death. These are for children? Miralyn asked. Stories of children in mortal danger? They're teaching tools, Jake explained. They teach kids that the world can be dangerous, but you can survive if you're smart and brave. We don't hide reality from children. We prepare them for it. He switched to more modern stories. Harry Potter, where kids fought an evil wizard. The Hunger Games, where teenagers battled to the death. Percy Jackson, where 12-year-olds went on quests fighting monsters. This one is really popular with middle schoolers, Jake said, showing scenes from Percy Jackson. The main character is 12. He discovers he's the son of a Greek god and has to go on dangerous quests. Kids love it. Your children fantasize about being in danger? Kesavan asked, his scales shifting through several colors. We fantasize about being heroes, Jake corrected. About being strong enough to face danger and win. It's aspirational. He pulled up another video. This one showing teenagers at something called a ropes course. They climbed high into trees and navigated obstacles while suspended 30 feet in the air. Secured only by thin safety harnesses. This is a team-building exercise, Jake said. Schools and camps use this to teach trust, courage, and problem-solving. You're perfectly safe with the harness, but your brain doesn't know that. You have to push through the fear. Next came rock climbing. Kids as young as 6 scaling artificial walls. Teenagers climbing real cliff faces. Jake showed a video of himself at 15, climbing up a rock face in Colorado with his dad belaying below. Were you not afraid? Duroc asked. Terrified, Jake admitted. But my dad was there teaching me how to do it safely. You learn to assess risk, find good handholds, trust your equipment. Fear doesn't go away, you just learn to work through it. He showed them camping next. Families sleeping in tents in the wilderness, starting fires, cooking food outdoors, hiking through areas with wild animals. My family went camping every summer, Jake said. We'd hike 10 miles into the woods, set up camp, stay for a week. No electricity, no running water, just us and nature. I learned to filter water, build a fire, read a map, use a compass, all before I was 12. And if something went wrong, someone asked, if you encountered a dangerous animal? That's part of what you learn, Jake said. How to store food so bears don't get it. How to make noise so you don't surprise animals on the trail. How to stay calm if you do encounter something. My dad taught me all of it. He switched to winter sports. Skiing, snowboarding, ice skating. Kids racing down mountains at high speeds, jumping off cliffs into snow, spinning in the air. This is downhill skiing, Jake said. You slide down a mountain on 2 thin boards. People start learning as young as 3 or 4. By the time you're a teenager, you're going down black diamond runs at 40 miles per hour. The video showed a skier navigating through trees, launching off natural jumps, carving hard turns that sent up sprays of snow. One wrong move and you crash into a tree, Jake said matter-of-factly. So you learn not to make wrong moves. You develop reflexes, read terrain, make instant decisions. It's great training, For what? Mira Lynn asked quietly. Jake paused. For life, I guess. For making choices under pressure. For trusting yourself. He showed them organized youth sports next. Football teams where children crashed into each other wearing pads and helmets. Wrestling matches where teenagers grappled for dominance. Boxing gyms where kids learned to fight. I played football from age 8 to 18, Jake said. Every practice, every game, you're hitting other people and getting hit. You learn toughness. You learn that getting knocked down doesn't mean you're done. You get back up. A video played of a high school football game. The hits were hard, the play was fast. Jake pointed himself out, number 23, playing linebacker. In one play, he got completely flattened by an opposing player. He lay on the ground for a moment, then got up and jogged back to the huddle. Did that not injure you? Kesavan asked. Got the wind knocked out of me, Jake said. Hurt like hell. But I was fine. You learn to distinguish between hurt and injured. Hurt is temporary. Injured means you actually damaged something. And children learn this distinction through repeated physical trauma. Instructor Calder's tone was unreadable. I mean, I wouldn't call it trauma, Jake said. It's just sports. He showed them martial arts next. Kids in white uniforms practicing kicks and punches. Teenagers sparring. Actually hitting each other in controlled environments. This is karate. This is judo. This is Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Jake narrated as the videos played. Millions of kids study martial arts. They learn discipline, respect, and how to fight. Some of them compete in tournaments where they actually fight other kids. On screen, two 12-year-olds grappled in a jiu-jitsu match, each trying to submit the other. It was intense and clearly required serious skill. But why? Durok asked. If your world is peaceful, why train children in combat? Self-defense is one reason, Jake said. But mostly it's about the discipline and confidence. Knowing you can handle yourself in a physical confrontation changes how you move through the world, even if you never have to use it. He switched to a different topic, adventure activities. He showed them kids on zip lines screaming as they flew through the air suspended by a single cable. Teenagers bungee jumping, falling toward the ground before the cord caught them. Young adults skydiving, jumping out of perfectly good airplanes. These are recreational activities, Jake said. People do this for fun, for the thrill, for the challenge of facing your fear and doing it anyway. The aliens had gone quiet again. Jake could see many of them having conversations with their neighbors, antenna twitching, scales shifting color, bodies tensing in whatever passed for stress in their species. Let me show you one more category, Jake said. This is probably the most important one. Social development. He pulled up videos of kids playing together, groups of friends playing make-believe games, creating elaborate scenarios with rules they made up on the spot. Kids arguing, learning to negotiate and compromise, siblings fighting and then making up. Humans are social creatures, Jake explained. We need to learn how to interact with each other, how to handle conflict, how to work in groups. We do this through constant social interaction from a very young age. He showed a video of a birthday party. 20 kids running around, playing games like musical chairs and freeze tag. The competition was friendly but real. When someone lost, they had to deal with the disappointment and keep playing anyway. Watch this game, Jake said, showing kids playing something called dodgeball. You throw balls at other kids trying to hit them. If you get hit, you're out. It teaches aim, dodging, strategy, and how to lose gracefully. A small girl got hit early and sat on the sidelines, clearly upset. A friend sat next to her and talked to her. By the end of the game, she was cheering for her team. That's Sophie, my little sister, Jake said. She's learning that losing is part of life. Her friend is learning empathy, both important lessons. He showed them school next. Classrooms where kids raised their hands to answer questions, competed for grades, gave presentations in front of. 3 weeks after Jake's presentation, the Galactic Coalition made an unusual decision. A delegation would visit Earth to observe human childhood firsthand. The presentation had been shared across the Coalition's networks, and the response had been intense. Some species declared it barbaric. Others found it fascinating. All of them wanted to know more. Jake found himself assigned as a guide. Along with him would travel Zix, Kesavan, Mira Lynn, Durok, and 3 instructors including Calder. The plan was simple. Spend 2 weeks observing human children in their natural environment. The shuttle landed in a suburb outside of Columbus, Ohio. Jake had chosen his hometown deliberately. It was average, normal, the kind of place where typical American families lived typical American lives. Nothing fancy, nothing extreme, just regular people doing regular things. Welcome to Earth, Jake said as they exited the shuttle into a warm summer afternoon. The aliens wore devices that made them appear human to any observers. They still looked strange to Jake, but at least they wouldn't cause a panic. They had set up a concealed observation post in an empty house overlooking a park. Through advanced coalition technology, they could watch and listen without being noticed. Jake led them to the observation room and gestured to the windows. "It's Saturday afternoon," he said. "Watch, the park was full of children. Kids ran, screamed, played, fell, got up, and ran some more. To Jake, it looked like every summer day of his childhood. To the aliens, it looked like chaos. A boy who looked about 8 years old came racing down the street on a bicycle. He was going fast, standing up on the pedals, wind in his hair. At the end of the block, he tried to skid to a stop, lost control, and crashed into a bush. The bike clattered to the ground. The boy lay in the bush for a moment. "Should we intervene?" Kesavan asked urgently. "Wait," Jake said. The boy crawled out of the bush, looked at his scraped elbow, wiped the blood on his shirt, picked up his bike, and rode off again. "He's bleeding," Miralyn said. "Where are his caretakers?" As if in answer, a woman came out onto a nearby porch. "Tyler!" she yelled. "Be careful." The boy, Tyler, apparently waved at her without slowing down. "That's it?" Durok asked. "She does not retrieve him?" "Treat his wound?" "He's fine," Jake said. "It's just a scrape. She probably saw him crash from the window. If it was serious, she'd go get him. Since he got up and kept riding, she knows he's okay." They watched as Tyler joined a group of other kids at the park. Within minutes, they had organized some kind of game that seemed to involve running, tagging, and a lot of shouting. The rules were unclear, but everyone seemed to know what they were doing. "How do they know what to do?" Six asked. "Who is instructing them?" "Nobody," Jake said. "They're making it up. Kids do that. They create games, make rules, and force them themselves. It teaches negotiation, creativity, leadership." One kid tried to claim he hadn't been tagged. An argument broke out. The other children debated, voted, and decided he was out. The boy accepted the decision reluctantly and sat down to wait for the next round. "They resolved the conflict themselves," Caldur observed. "No adult intervention required." "That's the point," Jake said. "They're learning to handle their own problems." A girl of about 10 climbed onto the monkey bars. She swung from rung to rung confidently until she was in the middle, then tried to do some kind of flip. She didn't make it. She fell 6 feet onto the mulch below, landing hard on her back. The aliens all tensed. The girl lay there for a moment, staring up at the sky. Then she rolled over, got to her feet, brushed herself off, and climbed back up to try again. "She fell from 2 body lengths," Kesavan said, his scales pale with stress. "That could have caused serious injury." "Could have," Jake agreed. "Didn't. She probably got the wind knocked out of her. Maybe she'll have some bruises. She's learning her limits. By exceeding them and falling," Durok said flatly. "Exactly." They watched the park for 2 hours. In that time, they saw a dozen minor injuries. Scraped knees, bumped heads, twisted ankles. In every case, the child would pause, assess the damage, and continue playing. Parents watched from benches or porches, intervening only when something seemed serious. As the afternoon wore on, Jake took them to a different location, a little league baseball game. They sat in the stands among actual parents, their disguises holding. "These children are very young," Miralyn whispered as 9-year-olds took the field. "Yeah, this is the minor league," Jake said. "They start at 6 or 7 usually." The game began. The first batter hit the ball and ran. The second batter struck out. The third hit a grounder and got thrown out at first. Standard baseball. Then came the fourth batter. The pitcher threw the ball. It hit the batter square in the back. The kid went down. Every alien in their group started to stand. Jake grabbed Zix's arm. "Wait, watch." The coach ran out, checked on the kid. The boy was crying, but he stood up. The coach talked to him for a minute, patted his shoulder, and sent him to first base. The kid wiped his eyes and took his base. The game continued. "That projectile struck him with considerable force," Caldur said. "He was in visible distress." "Yeah, getting hit by a pitch hurts," Jake said. "But he's okay. In baseball, if you get hit by the pitch, you get to go to first base. So there's actually a reward for taking the hit. Teaches you that sometimes pain is worth it for the strategic advantage." They watched the rest of the game. Kids swung and missed, made errors, got disappointed, celebrated, competed. It was intense for 9-year-olds. Parents yelled encouragement and occasionally criticism. The kids absorbed it all and kept playing. After the game, Jake took them to observe his own family. His parents had agreed to act natural while being secretly recorded. It was dinner time. Sophie, Jake's little sister, sat at the table talking about her soccer practice. She had tried to score a goal and missed, hitting the post instead. She was frustrated. "That's rough, sweetie," their mom said. "But you'll get it next time." "I practiced for hours," Sophie said. "I should have made it." "Should have doesn't matter," their dad said, not unkindly. "What matters is you keep practicing. You learn from the miss and do better next time." Sophie nodded, still upset but accepting it. "Your parental unit is not providing comfort," Marilyn whispered to Jake. "She is in emotional distress." "He's teaching her resilience," Jake whispered back. "Comfort is good, but so is learning that failure happens and you deal with it." After dinner, Sophie went outside to practice more. She kicked the ball at the goal over and over, missing most of the time, adjusting her technique, trying again. "She is voluntarily continuing the activity that caused her distress," Duroc observed. "She wants to get better," Jake said. "That's the drive humans have. We don't like failing, so we work harder." The next day, Jake took them to a high school. They observed from the concealed shuttle as students moved between classes. What struck the aliens most was the social dynamics. They watched as a boy tried to talk to a girl he liked. He was nervous, stumbling over his words. She politely declined his invitation. He walked away embarrassed but handling it. He made himself vulnerable and was rejected, Zix said. "This will damage his development." "Nah," Jake said. "He'll be embarrassed for a bit, then he'll try again with someone else." Learning to handle rejection is important. You can't succeed at everything. They observed gym class, teenagers playing basketball, competing hard, getting physical. One kid got elbowed in the face accidentally. He sat out for a few minutes holding ice to his cheek, then got back in the game. They observed a chemistry class where students mixed chemicals, carefully but with minimal supervision. One group's experiment bubbled over. They cleaned it up and tried again. They observed a debate tournament where teenagers argued complex political topics in front of judges. The students who lost looked disappointed but shook hands with their opponents and analyzed what they could have done better. They accept defeat and immediately begin planning improvement. Calder noted. "There is no shame in losing, only motivation to win next time." "That's the idea," Jake said. That evening, they went to the event Jake had been both looking forward to and dreading, a high school football game. It was Friday night and the stands were packed. Jake's old high school was playing their rival. The aliens watched the game with growing horror. Teenagers crashed into each other at full speed. Bodies hit the ground hard. The sound of collisions carried across the field. And the crowd cheered. "This is sanctioned?" Kesavan asked, his voice strained. "Parents watch their offspring engage in ritual combat and celebrate it?" "It's football," Jake said. "It's tradition. Yeah, it's rough, but the kids love it. Look at them." On the field, despite the violence of the sport, the players were clearly having the time of their lives. They celebrated good plays, encouraged each other after mistakes, competed with everything they had. In the third quarter, a player got hit hard and stayed down. The aliens all leaned forward. The medical team ran out, checked him over, helped him to the sidelines. He sat out for one play, then went back in. "Unbelievable," Duroc muttered. The home team won in the final seconds on a long touchdown pass. The crowd went wild. The players celebrated, jumping and shouting. The losing team looked devastated but lined up to shake hands. As they walked back to the shuttle that night, the aliens were quiet. Finally, Zix spoke. The delegation returned to Harmony Point with their observations, and the Academy erupted with discussion. The footage from Earth was shared throughout the Coalition's educational networks. What started as curiosity about human capabilities became a full examination of human child development. Jake found himself constantly answering questions. Cadets stopped him in hallways. Instructors invited him to speak to their classes. Everyone wanted to understand how humanity had created a culture that seemed designed to produce resilient, adaptable individuals. Zix had become obsessed. The insectoid spent every free moment researching human childhood practices. One evening, Jake found Zix in the library, surrounded by holographic displays showing various aspects of Earth culture. "You need to sleep," Jake said, sitting down across from Zix. I am discovering remarkable things, Zix said, its antennae twitching excitedly. Did you know that human children are expected to navigate to educational facilities independently by age 10 in many cultures? You mean walking to school? Jake asked. Yeah, that's normal. My species transports young in protected conveyances until they reach maturity, Zix said. The concept of a juvenile traveling alone through public spaces is unthinkable. Yet humans consider this a basic life skill. Kids need to learn independence, Jake said. Can't have your parents drive you everywhere forever. Zix pulled up another display. And this concept, allowance. Human parents pay their offspring small amounts of currency to teach them resource management and the value of labor. Yeah, I got $5 a week for doing chores, Jake said. Had to learn to budget, save up for things I wanted. Remarkable, Zix muttered, making notes. Financial education begins before age 10. By adolescence, humans are expected to understand debt, savings, investment, and trade. Over the next few days, Jake discovered that Zix wasn't alone. Groups of cadets had formed study circles, each focusing on different aspects of human development. Miralyn was researching human educational practices. Kesavan was analyzing competitive sports. Durak was studying what humans called extracurricular activities. Jake sat in on one of Miralyn's presentations. She had compiled information about human schools and the variety of challenges children faced there. Human education is remarkably adversarial, Miralyn explained to a room of cadets. From age 5, children are tested constantly. These tests rank them, creating a hierarchy of achievement. Those who score well receive praise. Those who score poorly face consequences and social stigma. That seems harsh, someone commented. It prepares them for reality, Miralyn countered. In human society, performance matters. They learn this early. Additionally, human students are required to give presentations, speak publicly, perform in front of peers. This builds confidence and communication skills. She pulled up footage of a middle school debate tournament. Watch these 12-year-old humans. They are arguing complex ethical questions, presenting evidence, responding to challenges in real time. They are developing skills that many species do not learn until adulthood. Jake watched as the cadets absorbed this information. They were beginning to understand that human childhood wasn't just about physical challenges. It was comprehensive preparation for adult life. Kesavan's research focused on sports and competition. He had created a detailed analysis of how competitive play shaped human psychology. Humans begin competing as soon as they can walk, Kesavan explained at his presentation. Games like tag teach pursuit and evasion. Hide and seek teaches strategy and patience. As they age, competition intensifies. School sports leagues create formal competitions where children and adolescents battle for victory in various physical contests. He showed footage of different sports: soccer, basketball, swimming, track. Notice that humans create artificial challenges. They could simply run, but instead they race. They could simply throw a ball, but instead they compete to throw it farther or more accurately than others. This constant competition drives improvement. A cadet asked, "But what of those who lose? Does this not damage them?" "Initially I thought so," Kesavan admitted. "But observe." He played footage of a child losing a race, looking upset, then immediately asking when the next race would be. Humans learn that losing is temporary. That defeat is not final. They lose, they practice, they try again. This persistence is trained from childhood. Durak's research took a different angle. He focused on what humans did outside of formal education and training. Humans have this concept. Hobbies, Durak explained. Activities pursued purely for enjoyment and personal growth, not for survival or profit. Children collect objects, build models, learn musical instruments, create art, write stories, all voluntary, all self-directed. He showed examples. A girl who collected and studied insects, a boy who built elaborate structures from small bricks, a teenager who learned to play guitar by watching videos and practicing for hours. This teaches autonomous learning, Durak continued. Human children learn that they can teach themselves, that they can pursue mastery without external pressure. By adulthood, they are capable of identifying skills they need and acquiring them independently. Jake sat through these presentations with growing amazement. He had never really thought about his childhood this way. To him, it was just life. But seeing it through alien eyes, he began to understand how unique human development was. One afternoon, Instructor Cal Durr invited Jake to a meeting of the Academy's senior staff. The conference room was filled with instructors from various species, all studying displays and data about human childhood. Lieutenant Morrison, Calder said, "We have questions that only a human can answer." "I'll do my best, sir," Jake said. An instructor from the aquatic delphine species spoke first. "We have observed that human children engage in what you call pretend play. They simulate various roles and scenarios. Can you explain the purpose? You mean like playing house or pretending to be superheroes?" Jake asked. "That's how kids learn empathy and problem solving. When you pretend to be a doctor, you learn to think like a doctor. When you pretend to be a hero, you learn courage. It's practice for real life." "But the scenarios are fictional," the instructor pressed. "How does practicing impossible situations prepare them for real situations?" "Because the emotions are real," Jake said. "When a kid pretends to save someone, they feel what it's like to be brave. When they pretend to take care of a baby doll, they learn patience and responsibility. The situation is fake, but the learning is real." Another instructor, a reptilian Srath, asked the next question. "We have observed human adolescents engaging in what appears to be deliberate risk-taking behavior. Operating vehicles at high speeds, jumping from heights, exploring dangerous areas. This seems counterproductive to survival." Jake thought about how to explain teenage behavior. That's actually about testing limits. Teenagers need to figure out what they're capable of. Yes, sometimes they go too far, but that's part of learning. You push boundaries, find out where the line is, learn from mistakes. "But the mortality rate," the instructor said. "Surely this risk-taking causes preventable deaths?" "Some," Jake admitted. "But humans believe that a life lived without risk isn't really living. We'd rather our kids learn to assess and manage risk than avoid it entirely. Someone who never faces fear never learns courage." The questions continued for 2 hours. They asked about everything. Why humans let children play with toy weapons. Why teenagers were allowed to date and form romantic relationships. Why families encouraged children to argue and debate at dinner tables. Why schools had competitive academic rankings. To each question, Jake gave the best answer he could. Sometimes the answer was practical. Sometimes it was cultural. Often it boiled down to the same principle. Humans believed that struggle created strength. As the meeting concluded, Calder spoke again. "We have made an interesting discovery, Lieutenant. We compared the psychological profiles of humans at the Academy against other species. Humans score significantly higher in several key areas: resilience, adaptability, pain tolerance, risk assessment, and what we call recovery speed." "Recovery speed?" Jake asked. "The ability to experience setback or trauma and return to full function quickly," Calder explained. "When a human fails a test or loses a competition, they experience brief distress and then begin planning improvement. When other species experience similar failures, the recovery period is often 10 times longer." "Huh," Jake said. "I never thought about it that way." "Your species has trained for failure," Calder continued. "By exposing children to thousands of small failures, you have made them immune to being paralyzed by failure. This is a significant evolutionary advantage." That evening, Jake met with his group of alien friends in the mess hall. They all looked exhausted from their research efforts. "I have a question," Mira Lynn said. "Did your parents deliberately design your childhood to create these capabilities? Was it planned?" Jake laughed. "No way. My parents just raised me the way they were raised. It's cultural, not planned. Nobody sits down and says, 'I'm going to design a childhood that produces resilient warriors.' It's just what we do." "That makes it even more remarkable," Zick said. "This is not a training program. This is cultural evolution that happened to produce optimal results." "I have been thinking," Kesavan said, his scales shifting to a word of the human childhood research spread throughout the Galactic Coalition faster than anyone expected. Within weeks, Jake's presentation had been viewed by billions across dozens of worlds. The reactions were varied and intense. Some species declared human child-rearing practices to be dangerously primitive. The crystalline Luminar filed a formal protest, calling it institutionalized child endangerment. Several peaceful species expressed horror at the violence inherent in human sports and competition, but others were fascinated. Military commanders wanted to know if human training methods could be adapted for adult soldiers. Educators debated whether introducing challenge and competition could improve their own systems. Scientists studied the psychological data, trying to understand how early stress exposure created resilience. The controversy reached a point where the Coalition Council called for a demonstration. They wanted proof that human childhood actually produced the capabilities everyone was arguing about. Admiral Vexthor, a high-ranking military officer from the predatory Raptus species, proposed a challenge. "We will conduct a joint training exercise," the Admiral announced at a Coalition assembly. "Human cadets against the finest cadets from other species. Identical starting conditions, identical objectives. We will see if this human childhood truly provides an advantage." The challenge was announced academy-wide. Jake and 19 other human cadets would compete against 40 cadets selected from other species, all top performers in their classes. The exercise would take place on Kelos 4, a harsh moon with varied terrain including forests, mountains, and wetlands. The objective was straightforward. Survive for 72 hours while accomplishing a series of tasks including establishing a base camp, securing resources, navigating to specific waypoints, and capturing a flag from the opposite team. The team with the most completed objectives and the flag at the end would win. Jake's team met in a briefing room to prepare. Along with him were Lieutenant Amy Collins, a combat engineer from Texas, Sergeant Ryan Blake, a field medic from Colorado, and 17 others representing various specialties and backgrounds. They were the first human class at the academy, all handpicked for their skills. "All right," Jake said, standing in front of a terrain map. "They're going to expect us to follow standard military procedure. Establish a defensible position, send out patrols, work methodically through the objectives. Which means we shouldn't do that," Amy said, grinning. "Right?" "Exactly," Jake agreed. "We need to use what makes us different. We're comfortable with chaos. We adapt fast. We take risks. Let's use that." They spent the next 3 days planning, but their planning was different from what the other team was doing. While the alien cadets were creating detailed schedules and precise coordination protocols, the human team was discussing general principles and contingency plans. "What if the terrain is different than the map shows?" Ryan asked. "We adapt," Jake said. "That's our whole advantage. We don't need perfect information. We figure it out as we go." The alien team, led by Zix with Kesavan, Mira Lynn, and Durak as squad leaders, took a completely different approach. They created spreadsheets. They assigned specific roles to each member. They calculated optimal routes, resource requirements, and time allocations down to the minute. "We must be precise," Zix told the team. "The humans will be unpredictable. We must counter with perfect execution." The exercise began on a gray morning with both teams being dropped at opposite ends of Kelos 4. The alien team immediately implemented their plan. They established a base camp in a defensible position, sent out scouts in precise patterns, and began working through their objectives in order. The human team did something different. They scattered. "This is madness," Kesavan said, watching the human team's movements on tactical displays. "They have no cohesion, no defensive position. They are everywhere." But Jake's team knew what they were doing. Amy had spotted a cliff face that was supposed to be impassable according to the terrain analysis. She free-climbed it in 20 minutes, finding a shortcut to the second waypoint that saved hours of travel. "How?" Zix stared at the display showing Amy's position. "That route was deemed impossible. My brothers and I used to climb the water tower back home," Amy said into her communicator, casual as anything. "This is easier." Ryan led a team through a swamp that was marked as too dangerous to cross. The alien analyst had calculated it would take 6 hours to go around. Ryan's team crossed it in 90 minutes, moving quickly and efficiently through terrain that would have paralyzed species less comfortable with getting muddy and wet. "We used to play in the creek near my house," Ryan explained later. "Swamps aren't that different. You just need to read the terrain and trust your balance." Meanwhile, Jake was leading an assault on the flag. The alien team had placed it in a well-defended position with overlapping fields of observation. By all tactical standards, it required a careful, coordinated assault. Jake didn't do careful. He did crazy. "Follow my lead," he said to his squad. Then he ran straight at the position, zigging and zagging, using terrain for cover, moving faster than the defensive sensors could track. His team followed, spreading out, creating confusion, moving like they were playing a game of capture the flag in the woods behind someone's house. Because Jake realized that's exactly what they were doing. This was just a bigger, more complicated version of games he had played 1,000 times as a kid. The alien defenders tried to coordinate a response, but the human assault was too chaotic, too fast. Jake reached the flag, grabbed it, and his team scattered in 6 different directions. By the time the defenders figured out which one actually had the flag, Jake's team was gone. 12 hours into the exercise, the human team had completed 6 objectives. The alien team had completed 3. Zix called a team meeting. We are being outpaced. We must accelerate our timeline. But if we rush, we may make errors, Miralyn cautioned. We don't have a choice, Kesavan said, frustrated. They are not following any predictable pattern. We cannot anticipate their movements. The alien team tried to speed up, but it threw off their coordination. When they sent a squad through a mountain pass to reach a waypoint, they moved cautiously, checking for hazards, proceeding methodically. It took them 4 hours. The human team tackled the same pass differently. Lieutenant Chris Parker, who had been a ski instructor before joining the military, led his squad down a snow-covered slope at breakneck speed, sliding and controlling their descent like they were on a recreational run. This is a standard black diamond, Chris said cheerfully as his team rocketed down the mountain. Done harder runs in Colorado. They reached the bottom in 40 minutes. The alien team began to panic. Everything they had trained for, all their precision and planning, seemed useless against opponents who treated a military exercise like a game. They are not taking this seriously, Duroc complained after watching footage of human team members joking and laughing while completing a difficult navigation challenge. No, Calderer, who was observing the exercise, corrected him. They are very serious. They are simply not stressed by it. This is the difference. By the end of day 2, the human team had completed 14 objectives and controlled the flag. The alien team had completed 8 objectives and was exhausted from trying to keep pace. That night, Jake's team gathered around a campfire. They were tired but in good spirits, talking and joking like they were on a camping trip. The alien team was in their precisely organized camp, reviewing data and trying to figure out where their strategy had gone wrong. We have been outmaneuvered at every turn, Zix admitted. Their coordination is somehow better despite appearing to have none. Their speed is greater despite taking what should be inefficient routes. Their morale is higher despite accomplishing more physically demanding tasks. It is their training, Miralyn said quietly, not their military training. Their childhood training. They have done all of this before in some form. The mountain descent, the cliff climbing, the swamp crossing, even the chaotic assault on our flag position. They have practiced these things as play. So we cannot win? Kesavan asked. We can complete our objectives, Zix said. We can do our best. But defeat them? I do not believe we can. The final day of the exercise proved Zix right. The human team completed their last objectives with time to spare. Jake led a defense of the flag that was more like a game of keep-away than a military operation, with his team spreading out and passing the flag between them whenever the alien team got close. When the exercise ended, the results were clear. The human team had completed 19 of 20 objectives. The alien team had completed 12. The human team controlled the flag and had done everything in 48 hours instead of the allotted 72. The debriefing was held in the main auditorium. Admiral Vexthor stood at the front, reviewing the data. The human team has achieved a decisive victory, the Admiral announced. But more importantly, this exercise has revealed something significant about human capabilities. The alien team consisted of our finest cadets, individuals who have trained for this their entire lives. The human team consisted of individuals who only received military training in the last few cycles. Yet the humans demonstrated superior adaptability, risk assessment, physical capability, and morale maintenance.